there's a lot of love put into them. I mean, I've been to other festivals where you can just tell they're like, put up the fucking tents, sell some tickets. We got some money to be made here this weekend, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, the bottles of water are $19. Fuck off. But you don't do that. You're actually giving a shit about the guest, you know? Like, what would people want at a festival? And you take the time, and it probably costs you more money to do it, but you do it.
Shit's about to go down.
I'm feeling something in my spirit.
Chats and Tatts with Aaron Della Vedova.
Today's a cool day for me. I've got one of my good friends on the show today. We've been friends for, I'm guessing 20 years, maybe, somewhere in that
15
range.
plus, yeah.
Yeah. Long time. That went by quick. And he's here, but he's not here because he's my buddy. He's an interesting guy with an interesting life, and his story of where he started and where he ended up is fascinating. He's a man of many faces. He does a lot of different jobs, and we're going to get into all that here shortly. But without further ado, please welcome my friend, Johnny Shockey.
Thanks, Aaron, for having me.
Yeah,
It's good to be here.
Good to have you here, man. So why don't we hear a little bit? I mean, you started life off, I mean, obviously you were a little child and all these things, but your big first move in life, correct me if I'm wrong, was sports. You were a professional athlete. You were a hockey player. You're Canadian. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, that right after high school, pro hockey or college and then pro, or how did you get into and who'd you play for and all that?
Yeah, so, I grew up in a small town, southern Alberta, oil town. And, basically it was my out. I wasn't good at school. There was a lot of things that I struggled with, I think, growing up in a town with not a lot of resources. And basically I just knew, like, even my dad at a young age was like, you want out of this town, this is your out. Like, this is what you got to do, And so hockey was an interesting way to approach that, because there's, it's not just skilled guys in hockey. There's tough guys. There's, you can battle your way through it. You don't have to be that skilled. I fall somewhere in the middle of that.
I was just going to say, which one were you?
Yeah, I was a little bit of both, I was pretty scrappy, but I also knew that was what was going to get me over the top. And so I was willing to pay a price and fight a lot and do the things I needed to do to get onto a team that would, respect me enough to bring me on. So it really interesting story. I come from Canada to the US, and my dad gave me $40. He went to the ATM and gave me $40, and I was going to Kansas City. And he said, here's $40. This will get you to where you need to go. I had no other money. Didn't even have an ATM card. So
this was your $40 you got accepted to the team, but you had to get to Kansas City to start the journey.
Yeah. So I got there, and they give you, $30 a day to kind of survive and pay for your own meals. And anyway, long story short, I make the team. They let me go. I end up in Boise, Idaho with another minor league team. When I got there, coach is, GM is like, really glad to have you, kind of thing. And I said to him in a really humble way, I was like, do you think I could get a advance on my first paycheck? And he goes, why is that? And I was like, well, I don't have any money. He goes, what do you mean you don't have any money? I was like, well, I don't have any money to eat tonight. And he basically just kind of took a step back and just was kind of like, I can't believe this. And he went to the ATM and he pulls out some cash and gave me like $500 and said, just go get some food, buy yourself some clothes, we'll work out the rest in the next couple of days.
Wow.
But I think that that's kind of how I grew up, very humble, very, very much not a lot of money, very appreciative for the things that I got. So it kind of set a foundation for like where and what I was going to do the rest of my life. And when I look back, I wouldn't want any different.
That's cool. That's cool that you came, from that position to where you're at today. People that travel to success in that way are different, right? It's different than, my family had money and they flew me here and flew me there, and I had always, had a little credit card I used, and I'm not saying there aren't people who get there that way that aren't humble as well, but it's always the case with someone who gets there that way, that they are humble and they appreciate and are more grateful for every little success that they have, right? Because you remembered when you didn't have food to eat.
Yeah.
And you had to ask coach for
a
forward on your check. That's touching. That's
Yeah.
cool. And good on him for being the guy that's like, fuck, here you go, man. Let's help this kid out. Let's give him a shot.
Yeah. And there's part of me that's like very appreciative to my parents for that, because, giving your children too much or In that case, it was very little, but it teaches you. It gives you the character you need, the ability to just be tough and figure it out.
It's hard to do
Yeah,
for
it's hard to
me.
watch your kids do that these days. Like, you don't want them to suffer. You don't want them to go
I
through
have
those
the,
difficult
I
times.
have the
But that's what
hardest.
creates.
I know.
That's what creates character. You know.
I think I've fucked that up a little bit. I have been the dad who's like, okay, sweetie, here you go. Okay, sweetie. And now my oldest is 17 and she'll say and do things occasionally where I'm like, I created that. Fuck.
Well, it's hard with your little girls. You know, you're daddy's. You know, daddy's girl. Like it's hard. It's difficult.
It is interesting though on that, because my kids didn't grow up that way and aren't growing up that way. I won't get into my story, but mine's much like yours. There wasn't a lot of money and I had to scrap for everything I had. But it'd be interesting to see how it goes for them in their adult life. I know it's going to create other hurdles for them, but I think they'll get through them. But I think they're going to have a bit of a shocking awakening to the real world and a boss and a time. We got to be here now, or else you don't get your paycheck and all these things. And like I said, my oldest is going to be stepping into that realm soon, and I'll be watching carefully. We'll see how it turns out.
I think it comes down to work ethic, right? Your kids can have a lot in their life, and you see that with very successful families. But if they instill, certain aspects of good, good characteristics or good habits, it starts with work ethic.
It does. You got to make them work for it. You might give them the world, but make them work for it.
Yep.
So there's the minor leagues. Coach gives you some money to eat. Now you're playing for the minors. What's next?
I think the first year I was in the league, led the league in fighting majors, also was good enough to play. So it was like this good mix of being tough. I enjoyed fighting. I enjoyed being gritty. They used to say I used to fight with a smile on my face, but it was more because I loved the competition. I think you see it now with MMA and things like that are, these guys, they want to compete.
Yeah.
And so it was my ability, it was my choice to do that. I'd say 99.9% of my fights were over my own teammates. Had nothing to do with me. It had to do with, protecting guys or doing what I felt was the right thing.
Yeah. Hockey's an interesting sport, man. It's one of the only pro sports where fist fighting is just part of the game. It's literally endorsed. It's allowed. It's to win, to be a championship team. Part of that team is going to win fights on the ice.
It's absolutely insane to think that you can fight 3 times in a game before you get kicked out.
Yeah.
It's starting to change now, but when I played, guys didn't wear face masks, they didn't wear face shields. The generation before me didn't wear helmets. So it's missing teeth, broken noses, like all those things are what I went through in my life, and it's part of gives you the character you have today. I wasn't probably what the game needed then. Like, I feel like the way the game is now, I would have been more of an asset because there's not these big meatheads on the ice anymore. Like these big.
It's more skillful now.
Yeah, it is. And I was skilled enough, but I was tough enough. And so looking at the way the game's played now, it would have been probably different for me. But I loved every aspect of what I played and what I learned, because I think if I would have had the success and made millions of dollars playing in the National Hockey League, I probably wouldn't have the drive I have today.
Yeah, every little thing that happens to us in life opens a door that you didn't see coming, and then you look back 20 years later and you realize it had to go that way.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be here. Right. Exactly. I have thoughts like that too about things I thought went wrong. And now I look back, I'm like, well, that was really actually perfect that went wrong. Because of that, I did that,
Yeah.
It's one of I won't tell the story now, but I'm a tattooer probably because of something that went terribly wrong. Another story for another day. But so how many years you've messed around with the hockey?
Yeah. 10 years.
10 years.
Yep, 10
Wow.
years. Yep.
And then it's time to leave. Why? Why'd you leave?
I had options to go play in Europe and to do some other things. And I was here in San Diego, and one of the owners of one of the teams I played on previously, we were out having drinks one night, and he mentioned that he wanted to open a bar restaurant in downtown San Diego. And so he asked me if I was interested in maybe doing it with him, and kind of hemmed and hawed over it, and realized, you're not getting a lot of opportunities in your life. Like, you're pretty below average in school, you're below average in hockey as a professional. So I took him up on the offer to open a bar, a restaurant, and he basically said, "Here, go do it your way." And so we created a nightclub, and
This
it
was
was
Voyeur, right?
yeah,
Yep.
yep. So we created Voyeur, which is a nightclub in downtown San Diego. We primarily booked DJs and electronic music, which was told us, everyone told us we'd fail. This wasn't going to work because it's not what people wanted to listen to at the time. Fast forward 5 years, and all of a sudden, Swedish House Mafia, Calvin Harris, Skrillex, Deadmau5, all these guys that had come through our club were all of a sudden mainstream music.
Wow.
Radio DJs, just big radio producers that did big collaborations with pop stars, and the whole world of electronic music just blew up.
Yeah, that was right when it started. How did you see that coming? I mean, were you into electronic music, or what gave you the insight to think, I bet you that's going to blow up? Because no one really knew at the time. I didn't. I remember when that stuff was happening, and I was kind of like, oh, yeah, there's this digital music thing. Who cares?
Yeah.
Put on the Led Zeppelin, I'm bored.
Yeah.
And now, by the way, I love digital music. I mean, it's evolved to this. I listen to it all the time when I'm drawing and I'm painting. That's what's on. So, but you saw that coming.
I don't know if I saw it coming as much as I realized timing is everything in life, like being in the right place at the right time. So I think we were, to say that we somehow saw what was about to happen is a very, not realistic thing to say. And I just think we were in the right place at the right time, and it was something we were passionate about. I think we were following trends that were starting to work in the right direction, and because we were on the head of the trends, I think that made the big difference. And so, we had a choice to start growing with these artists and start doing bigger shows, or hand them off to somebody else, let someone else go in and make these bigger shows happen. And we made a choice with a few people to go in, and who are now my partners, to go all in and keep the relationships with these artists and do bigger shows. And it started with, believe it or not, the arena I played hockey in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Your first big festival type event?
Yeah, was back at the arena I played hockey in.
Wow, that's cool.
So it was like a full circle.
Yeah, that's really cool. So these relationships are established. You see this trend growing. You decide, if we don't grow, we're not going to keep these people around because they need bigger venues. They need more of everything. So you grew. And I mean, part of this growth was your next place, which was Bang Bang, which is still here. You're no longer involved, but that was a nightclub, also a restaurant. But you guys were hosting, I know, a lot of these same people there as well. But then it moves more into what and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're more currently doing, which is Crssd, Under the Big Sky. So those are two separate festivals you produce.
Yeah.
But Crssd is a digital arts festival here, which I've been to here in San Diego on the Embarcadero. So dope. Such a great place to have it. And so that now you're on the big stage. That's a huge. I mean, how many people come to that?
Yeah, I think we do 40,000 a day, or 40,000 over 2 days. So it's all 21 and up. So it's got to be 21 to attend. The idea was to create a festival, for an older demographic.
No wonders I like it.
What was that?
No wonders I like it.
Yeah, well, and and the reality is that I think it's liability too. It's a lot of things, a lot of factors. You take on a lot of responsibility when you take on a lot of people.
Oh man, I walk through those festivals that you do, and all I can think about is your insurance bills. I just have these two small tattoo shops, and I've had issues legally, and I know how that goes. Nowadays, people sue you for anything.
Well, the love and the hate I have about what I do for a living on this aspect is I have to look at every worst case scenario.
Right.
And you keeps you up at night sometimes just thinking about every worst case scenario that could possibly happen. Now, are those going to happen? No. Could they happen? Yes. Are they something that you think about? Absolutely.
So Crssd is going great, and it's been going great for how many years now?
We started in 2015.
So shit, that's 7 years you've been going on that one.
We do it twice a year, so 14 festivals.
Wow. And that sort of brings you to, well, let's do something new. Now, So at this point, you're wanting to go back to your roots, which is I want to move somewhere where and this is I remember we talked when I was tattooing you one day, and you were telling me about Montana and this place in Montana, the Flathead Valley and Whitefish, and I was having a midlife crisis where I was like, I've got to leave the city, man. Where should I go? And you're like, Aaron, don't even worry about it. Don't even go look anywhere else. I've got the spot. And I was like, really? You got the spot? He's like, I'm telling you, I already traveled everywhere. I looked at all the spots. This is the spot. And boy, you were right, by the way. I should have went up there and bought a house the day you told me that. Screwed that one up. But you actually did. You went up there and got yourself a large piece of land, 350 acres, I believe.
Yeah. Give or take, yeah.
In the middle of the Flathead Valley. And I know everybody out there, if you've never been there, it's absolutely breathtaking. I mean, you've got Glacier National Park that way. You've got Big Mountain, the ski resort that way. It's just rolling hills and mountains everywhere and a river, creek running through the property. And you started doing your next festival, which is Under the Big Sky, country music focused festival. How many years now are you on that one?
It was a few years in the making, and we didn't buy the ranch thinking that particularly you would do a big music festival there, but it's what I do for a living, so inevitably your wheels start turning. But I wanted to go back to my roots, which were Western culture and ranching, and I love the simplicity of raising my kids that way. And living in San Diego, I wasn't home as much as I wanted to be, and just traffic and just quality of life. I felt personally that we needed to make some choices and to make some tough ones. And part of it was giving up the sunshine for 4 seasons, and dealing with the good, the bad, and the ugly of living in a place where it's not going to be 72 degrees every day. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want that for my kids. I wanted to be raised tough and hardy, and to know that this is a reality. Like, this is how life for a lot of people is, and like this is what is important to us and our values. And so raising our kids in Montana was the number one priority.
Well, I can't blame you there. I mean, who wouldn't want to raise their kids that way? I mean, maybe some wouldn't, but I see extreme value in that. I wish I could do more of that with my own children, but for now, I'm stuck down here in SoCal, which is, hey, I'm not crying a river. It's a beautiful place. I love it here. I love Carlsbad, where I live. It's all great.
Yeah, but I see you up there, 3 times a year, 4 times a year?
I do. And that's my way of getting a little bit of that into my life as I visit a lot. Hopefully, as the years go on, I'll be visiting more and more. Yeah. So that festival, tell everybody, like, you got some big name people playing at this thing. I mean, these are country musicians. I don't know if everyone listening listens to country, but who are some of the acts you have up there?
Well, there's I guess to start with, there's the Nashville country, which is very polished, CMT, very commercial country, right? And then you have more of the Texas country, mm-hmm. the more kind of roots, independent country. There's a big difference between the two. It's no different than a lot of genres. Like, electronic music has different genres within the genres, right? So we steer more towards kind of the outlaw, Americana, which is what they'd call it, roots music, country music, folk, and also some bluegrass. Those things really just all go well together. Coulter Walls.
I was hoping you'd mention that. He's my favorite.
Yeah, Coulter's amazing. These guys are they're old souls. These guys play country music more in the folk sense. They tell stories. They write, majority of them write their own music. Ryan Bingham, who's one of my personal favorites. He's also on the cast of Yellowstone. Mm-hmm. These are all guys that it's definitely more what speaks to me personally. So it's definitely what we've kind of geared towards.
I mean, I sort of I found Coulter Wall. I don't know how, probably you, and I remember thinking, this is dope. This is country. I like country music, and now I listen to country music all the time. And of course, I've been to the festival, and the people you have playing there. It's so cool, man. The bands you're getting up there, the layout of the 3 stages, and how it's spanned over. I don't know. I know you got 300 and something acres, but where we all have the event, that's spanned over 10 acres, I think, right? So it's not all bundled together. There's open spaces. It's so cool, man. I love what you did with that. And yeah, I know you got too many people moving into that valley, but I do have to tell everybody, if you want to go to an amazing venue to see music, that has to be right up there with like Red Rock and some of these really famous venues that you created a new one that's brand new that a lot of people have never been to, and it's gorgeous and it's cool. So congratulations to you for that.
Thank you.
Well, that's your journey, dude. That's a great story coming from, I don't know what I want to call it, just no money, trying to find a way out of a small town, seeing everybody who doesn't get out of the small town, probably looking at them like, I don't want to end up like that fucking dude. Fuck it, I'm going to play hockey. What do I got to do? Well, you got to do this and this and this. I'll do it. You do it. And then that gives you this doorway that opens into this whole music world, which is now your world. And that gives you the opportunity to live in Montana and raise your children on this beautiful ranch and dress up like a cowboy.
I wore a cowboy tux to my prom, like that's how I grew up. And so I got away, away from that. I went completely the direction to some pretty outlandish hairstyles, to some pretty outlandish styles in general, but ultimately it kind of led me back to my roots. And I love the cattle operation we have going, and I love being a working ranch, telling the story.
How many cattle do you have on the ranch?
So we run 100 cow calf pairs total on our ranch, but we also have there's 3 partners in a bigger ranching community that we have. We just started. But we primarily are Wagyu cattle.
Wow.
And we have, between the 3 of us partners, we have more additional cows.
Can I talk to you about that Wagyu name?
Yep.
So I'm a little confused about this because I go to restaurants and the Japanese A5 or whatever. I've had it. Okay. I can't say I'm the hugest fan always. It's obviously what I've been getting. It's just a super fat forward thing. And it is good. A couple bites, you're like, it's kind of like eating bacon almost. Better than bacon, but kind of, is that what comes out of these cows? When you say Wagyu, is that the breed of the cow or is it the fattiness of the meat? What makes it Wagyu? I don't get it.
It's a Japanese genetic.
So it's the genetic of the animal. Mm-hmm. It's a Wagyu cow.
Yeah.
Now, the meat that comes out of that cow, it can not all be super fatty, right? You still get tenderloins out of there and ribeyes and the different cuts, right? Is it always more fatty than any other cow, or what makes it better?
The carcasses are graded, so the whole hanging carcass is graded on its fat content.
Okay.
So you have, obviously you have your leaner cuts within any cow, but you also have, you also can breed them to an Angus. So you don't have quite that fat content. Yeah, you have an addition, you do, but it's a bigger carcass. And I'm not the Wagyu guru. I would say my partner is. It's incredible to know what these guys have learned and what they know about this whole cow operation. But the reality is that you can breed them to other breeds to get different fat content, bigger carcasses, all of those things. So anything that's 50% Wagyu is classified as Wagyu, but you can have a Wagyu, which is, Snake River Farms does, I think, an F1, which is 50% Wagyu, 50% Black Angus. And I can't speak for sure if that's the case, but, I think that's what you see a lot in the United States.
It's kind of like winemaking. I mean, it has that flavor to it. Like you're breeding the cows, you're feeding them a certain way. All these little minute changes are going to affect that steak at the end, right? I'm sure there's guys that just tweak out on this shit, just sitting there tasting and changing the diet this little bit of a way. And next season we're going to breed this into our mixture. And it's interesting to make it, because I grew up in Iowa, and I guess my family, were relatively poor back then, and it was just a cow was a cow. You kill a cow, you get some steak out of it, that's it. And to see all these, it's really gotten a lot fancier nowadays. I go to a steak restaurant now and I'm like, okay, there's like 15 dry aged, and I'm like, I don't even know what half the shit is, man, but it looks good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's an art form, right? Like craft meats is a real thing nowadays, just like wines are, just like, even cheese, down to different things that people are really passionate about. So it's how it's curated, how it's grown, how, the story behind it. I think the other day I was driving by the grocery store and it said grass-fed Wagyu for sale. And I was laughing to myself. I'm like, well, I think all Wagyu is grass-fed.
That's funny.
So it's like people just need to do a little bit more homework on how and what they're eating and what they prefer. Like some people want grass-finished, I think is what they're really trying to say. Mm-hmm. Some people, if you want whiter, fattier meats, and I don't know how exciting we want to get into the weeds on beef, but if you want big, fat, juicy steaks, you'd want grain-fed. finished
That's what
at the end.
provides that fat
Yeah,
at the end,
it's the
right?
finishing.
Interesting. Yeah, it is. Like you said, I never thought of it that way. Craft meats. Yeah, that's a whole thing happening right now. Craft meat, and I love it. I'm always looking for a new type of steak or wild game. I love wild game. If I go to a butchery and they have anything I've never eaten before, I immediately try it. Um, that's fun, dude. You get to run your music festivals. You get to run a ranch and live up in beautiful Montana, and still come down to San Diego when it's a little bit muddy up there. This is the shoulder season right now, everybody. So Johnny's figured he'd come down here and have some sunshine.
Do some work.
Until some snow shows up when it's fun to be in Montana again, right? And work, obviously, always work. Guy like you, every day is. People will say that to me all the time. Are you off this weekend? I'm like, I'm never off. There's always an email or a text or something. It's always working.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, that's cool, man. Well, this is Chats and Tats, so I kind of want to steer it over to you on let's talk about your tattoos you currently have. When did you get your first tattoo? That's always a good story.
First tattoo was a cover up, essentially.
Why
but
could it be a cover up? The
well,
first one would be the one you were covering up.
The first one, we covered it up later. Let's put it that way.
Oh, the first one got covered up later.
Covered up later.
Let's hear that. What?
Yeah.
Where were you?
It was just the sun, and I was in Jackson, Mississippi, of all places, and
This is when you're playing hockey.
yeah.
And you're
And
like,
everyone's getting a tattoo, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get one. Got one on my shoulder. Then a couple years later, I'm like, oh, I need to add to that and adjust some things. So we did.
Okay, and then this kind of probably started your interest because obviously at this point you're more of a connoisseur of tattooing. You really are careful about what you get, who does it for you. Back then it was just, oh, there's a shop, let's go get something, and then you covered it up, and then you started getting a little more careful about what you want to get and why. Or
Yeah, well, I think that's when I met you.
okay,
Is
that
I
okay?
think,
That's okay.
yeah, I think I ultimately I think if you're gonna put something on your body for forever, I think you want to have a relationship with the person that's going to do it somewhat. So it's been great to just sit with you and we've had these conversations for hours at a time. This is nothing new for us, really.
I know we're just doing it with microphones.
Exactly.
No, that is you highlight something that's really near and dear to me, and that is after 30 years of tattooing, I look back all of it, and the thing I'm most satisfied by and proud of is the friendships that were made. My best friends, real people I care about, who I know a lot about. There's not many jobs where you sit in a room, put your phone down, and talk to somebody for 4-5 hours. And ultimately, somehow more intimacy always comes out of those times with people. I don't know if it's a little bit of everything. It's one, there's nothing else to do. You're in the tent, you're there for 5 hours. You're going to eventually talk. As the time goes on, the person's in pain. I think a vulnerability inevitably comes out of people because I don't know, they just lay in their body there and you're cutting into them and they're bleeding and suddenly they're telling you their life story. And there's time, like barbers say, that's what we do. I'm like, and I no diss on barbers, but you do it you only get 20 minutes with somebody. Again, I've got clients of mine that I've spent 150, 200 hours locked in a room with these people, and that is cool. And we have had a lot of that time together, and that's just, that's why we're good friends.
I think you value that time because you get very real with, like you said, if they're in pain, taking the pain away by just talking about other things that are probably going on in their life that maybe make them feel better about the physical pain they're going through. I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes it's that. Sometimes you can get the vibe where they want you to shut up.
Yeah.
Grit
their teeth.
Most people do want to talk, I find, at least my clients. But you do get them sometimes. They're like, "Can I put my headphones on?" I'm like, "Put them on, buddy. Just go into that little breathe, relax." That's kind of how I get tattooed, actually. When I get tattooed, unless it's just a little fun jammer, when I get my serious work done, I'm kind of a headphones on, comfy clothes and slippers, and I'm just like, I just kind of go and just try to breathe, especially for I've got some difficult, deep groin and, stuff where you go, you have to find some
Happy place.
Yeah, you got to do your best.
Oh, man.
You got to do your best. But yeah, so you've been collecting, and you're not super mega tattoo, but you've got a number of tattoos. And today you're getting another one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just look at it like it's a canvas of the things that have happened in my life, and I'll probably just continue to add to that of, things that tell a story.
No,
essentially.
little timestamps.
Yeah.
Isn't it cool when you look at a tattoo, you remember where you were,
Yep.
what you were doing, who you were. Like I look at tattoos on my body and I can remember the angry punk rock kid that got it. And I'm like, who the fuck is that guy? Now, I'm not embarrassed of it. I'm kind of glad I remember that guy. Without the tattoo, I don't think I'd even remember who I was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But I see that tattoo and I'm like, oh, you were a whole nother being then.
Yeah.
So it is. It's like a little collection of your life that reminds you of who you are, where you've been, what you did. And I think that's one of the probably the coolest part about getting tattooed.
I think music and tattoos are the two things that do that for me in my life.
Oh yeah,
You know?
hearing a song.
Hear a song and you know well, in my case, I know kind of where I was and what I was doing, and it brings back a whole lot of other memories. First time I heard that song.
That's true.
And what I was doing. And so when you're you know, when you're doing tattoos, it gives you a piece of what you were.
Well, this one will be great because we're never going to forget the day we did our show together, because you're
Yeah.
going to have a tattoo that's going to remind you of it forever. Well, I like to say till we die. They're just there till you die, everybody. Like, don't make it so serious. You will die and they will go away, just like we all will.
Yep.
So without, maybe we should get to it. Today I'll just tell you a little bit. So I'll show you this design in a minute, but it's a cowboy gun firing, the old little joke where the pistol shoots the little stick out and it says bang.
Yep.
But this one has two sticks coming out and two flags and it says bang bang. And that's because of one of your projects with Bang Bang. Yep. And is there any more you want to add to that? I mean, that's basically a reminder of a phase of your entrepreneurial life and a project you did that was probably a pivotal project. It was a launching pad to where you're at now, Bang Bang, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah, no, Bang Bang was just it was a sushi social house with entertainment nightclub, and basically the name came from the old Nancy Sinatra song.
oh, I love that song.
And it was this mix of kind of saloon, Western saloon meets like Japanese sushi, and then we obviously had a nightclub attached to it as well.
Yeah, that place, by the way, I haven't been in a long time, but I obviously went when you owned it. So cool, man. They had a stairs that went into the upstairs. It was an upstairs place, and they did the entire thing like a Japanese subway, the exact tile in Japanese subways, and played, if I remember this right, and on speakers played the sound and echoes of recordings of Japanese subways. So it was like you were in Japan as you walked up through the tunnel to get to the restaurant.
Yep.
That's cool. That's cool.
I mean, it was on a second level, so you had to create an experience. The whole idea was to create an experience going up and down, because it was otherwise people would just think, man, there's a lot of stairs to go up and down.
That's what, I'll just say this one last thing about you, and more I think about it. You're, I don't know, you're pretty artistic when it comes to how you curate your environments, your restaurants, your clubs, your music events. The detail that you put into them is pretty bitchin'. Like, it's its own art project. You could have easily just not skipped the subway. You probably paid a lot of money to have that done. Could have skipped it, put that in your bank account. But you don't. You go that extra mile to these little fine details. Voyeur was like that. That club was sick. Everything you had done there was so cutting edge. I'd never been in a club that cool in my life till I went there. And same with Bang Bang. And of course, the events you do now are just, there's a lot of love put into them. I mean, I've been to other festivals where you can just tell they're like, put up the fucking tents, sell some tickets. We got some money to be made here this weekend, Yeah. Yes, the bottles of water are $19. Fuck off. But you don't do that. You're actually giving a shit about the guest, like what would people want at a festival? And you take the time, and it probably costs you more money to do it, but you do it.
Yeah, there's two things. One, I always say that it's creativity and creative people. It's what you can do on a limited budget, not what you can do on a big budget. So it's how you spend that money and how creative you can spend that money is what will basically determine your creativity.
Right. Yeah. It's probably a lot easier to get creative with an unlimited budget. Right.
You can pay multiple people to design something for you, but if you're designing it yourself and you have a limited budget, how far can you make that money go? And I think that those are factors I like to think of, because I like to do a lot of things with a small group of people, and creative minds, and we have some, I have some awesome partners.
Well, you do a good job, my friend. I am overly impressed with what you've created, with your success. And I'm stoked to be your friend. So let's just shift gears here. Let's go do it. Let's go rip a tat.
Let's do it.
All right.
Thanks, Aaron.
We'll see you guys on the other side.
Here we go.
Terribly painful.
Yeah. Easy peasy.
I feel like I got my hour and a half of counseling session again. So here we are.
I don't know if I'm that good, but
You are.
I did give you a little dermal massage, a little acupuncture that was blended in there. This area where you get tattooed, everyone's different, but traditionally pretty easy. Not a big deal. Well, it was fun, dude. Fun ripping a fun tattoo with you today. Always good seeing you. Why don't you tell let's hear about what you're up to. I know you're up to a lot of shit, but I know you got some events coming up. When are they? What are they? Tell me about that.
We have, we're working on a bunch of country stuff, and obviously we have Crssd in March, and then again in the fall. We have incredible bunch of stuff through the summer, but Under the Big Sky is a big one for us in July. We just closed on a new amphitheater, or signed a contract. We're just about ready to close on a lake up in Montana.
No shit.
4,000 capacity. It's half the lake is in Canada, half the lake is in Montana.
No way.
Yeah.
That sounds epic.
Yeah.
What's the name of the lake?
It's called Kukanusa.
Kukanusa. That's very Canadian.
It's kind of
Well, Indian, I should say.
Yes, native. Yes,
Native.
They have it kind of is very similar to almost like feels like a Lake Powell kind of.
Wow.
We have a lot of water, a lot of lakes up in Montana and into Canada.
That's one of the things I love it about up there is all this natural resources. You don't feel threatened.
Exactly.
There's a giant river. If I needed water, I could probably get it right there.
Totally. 100%.
Well, real quick. Crssd Fest dates.
First week of March,
Okay.
and then again last week of September.
And then you don't know the dates for Under the Big Sky, but it's
Under the Big Sky is July 14th to 16th,
all right.
2023.
I've been to both these things. If you guys are into festivals and music festivals, they're epic. I mean, not just the people you have performing, but I really think the locations where you have them are epic. Especially this Embarcadero deal down here with the water fountains right on the harbor, the views, the sunset. That place is bitching. And of course, the Big Sky event with your property up there with the creek running through it, and Glacier National Park in the background. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So I'd highly recommend both of these to anyone listening. And well, buddy, how about a toast? Cheers to you and all your success.
Cheers, Aaron.
Stoked for you.
Yep.
Let me go under
All
here.
the best to you and your family.
Thank you, my
Appreciate
friend. Thank you. See you on the next one. Bye-bye for now.